the service station pumping his gas. Pulled up beside him, blaring beside.
Hello and welcome to Telling It Like It Is, UGA Extension and Southeast District's newest source for local, unbiased, research-based information about Georgia's number one industry, agriculture. As always, your hosts for today's episode are myself, Blake Carter, the F&M County Ag and Natural Resources Agent, and Savannah Tanner, the Emmanuel County Ag and Natural Resources Agent. Today's episode features myself sitting down with Bryan Fluech, the Director of Marine Extension, as well as Savannah Tanner bringing on one of our longtime guests, Wade Parker, to talk about row crop grades and grade sheets and what we're seeing going on today and what we're seeing coming out of our grading. So we're going to kind of get started and kick stuff off with Bryan and myself. Bryan, you're the Director of Georgia Marine Extension, right?
So I'm our Associate Director of Extension. So
gotcha.
So
for folks that may not be familiar, y'all are not necessarily under the same umbrella as our side of Extension, but you're your own entity in our state, right?
Correct. So UGA Marine Extension, Georgia Sea Grant, whereas you guys fall under College of Ag, we fall under Public Service and Outreach. And Sea Grant, the Sea Grant model, it's a federal state partnership. So where Cooperative Extension has USDA, ours is NOAA, National Oceanic Atmospheric Administrations, and we are one of 34 Sea Grant programs across the country. So every one of our coastal states, our Great Lakes states, Guam, Puerto Rico, all have Sea Grant programs. Most of the time, but not always, it's usually at your flagship university. So UGA, UF, LSU. But yeah, we're unique compared to some other states, whereas typically Sea Grant programs are put under an academic program. In this case, we're put under a public service umbrella. And part of that actually has to do with our founder, Ed Chin. So we've been around since 1970. And one of the reasons Ed Chin purposely, wanted us under public service and outreach, when someone asked, they said, agriculture is so big in the state of Georgia and we have such a small coast. He was afraid, he's like, if there was ever budget cuts or shifting around, he said, chances are Marine Extension would get swallowed up. So, and I thought that was pretty insightful. But yeah, that's why in the state of Georgia, we have very similar missions. And obviously we work very closely with the Cooperative Extension because we have that service element. But from an administrative point of view, we fall technically under the public service leg of UGA, and you guys fall under the academic, even though we are doing very similar work as far as the intent.
That's exactly right. And it was kind of interesting. I spoke to at Sunbelt Ag Expo last, I guess it was a couple weeks ago when this airs. One of the guys from UF, he was actually a Sea Grant agent. So they have a little different. It wasn't that they were Marine. He said they didn't have that, but they were a Sea Grant agent. So is that kind of common, or are there most states having a designated Marine Extension?
So it's both. So I've been with UGA now for 10 years, but I was with UF for about 10 years. In Florida, Sea Grant is fully integrated into Cooperative Extension. So I was the Sea Grant county agent down in Collier County, which is Naples, Florida. But I also became we call them county extension directors. I think here you call them CECs.
Yep.
So yes, as an extension agent, my program responsibility was fisheries and seafood, but I oversaw our ag agents, our 4-H agents, master gardeners. So I have a very special place in my heart for extension. So even though I don't work on the ag side, I very much value what extension does for our farming and ag communities, or whether it's 4-H or family consumer science. And so I think honestly, that's part of the reason when I applied, our director, Mark Reese, who also had previously worked as a water resource specialist for Cooperative Extension, that was a major factor because I had come from a Cooperative Extension background. And I know when I got here in 2015, there wasn't that we had a bad relationship with Cooperative Extension. I just don't think we were working as close as possible. And I think that's something where we really do try to leverage our resources because, yes, I might not be working with row crops, but if it's coming with water resources or seafood safety or even native plant like relevant to the coast, we have a lot of overlap. And I mean, again, people come to us with questions, and part of our job as these extension agents, whether it's beef or fish, crab, whatnot, is taking that technical information and apply it to the community. So yeah, very much proud to be part of the extension system, even though we might, from an administrative point of view, don't necessarily fall directly under cooperative extension. I feel like we have very similar missions and interests.
It's funny. Even since I started, we are under kind of two different umbrellas, but that partnership and trying to work, especially if you're an agent, if you're one of the ag agents on the coastline, because one of the reasons we wanted to feature Marine Extension this week is everybody's migrating towards the Florida Georgia game.
Sure,
Everybody's
sure.
normally they go to the coast. I think the location of the Florida Georgia game might actually not be in Florida. I think it's in Atlanta this year. I'm not
Yeah.
really sure.
The St.
But
Simons, they all head over there for
always go to
practice.
St.
So, yep,
Simons. And
yep,
y'all's
yep.
base of operation for us is out of Brunswick, correct?
That's the facility I oversee, and that has traditionally been our extension office, correct? And then
Now, what's y'all's range of work? Because I mean, y'all work all across the coastline. So what's your geographic region or territory, I guess, that Marine Extension covers, or is it
so
statewide?
technically statewide, but I mean,
Yep.
unlike most of our coastal states, I mean, the majority of our population lives away from the coast. So I mean, Atlanta's so huge, but yeah, I'm not unlike, you might be the agent for Effingham. I cover the entire coastal region. But something that I think more and more, um, we are seeing a lot more people moving to the coast. I mean, look at your county. I mean, when the Hyundai plant came in, and we're having a lot of conversations, and I really do think cooperative extension, marine extension, really, this is something my team and I are saying, hey, we're having a lot more people moving here. What's that mean for water resources,
Yep.
food, access, recreation, hospitality? These are all things that we're trying to see, can we stay ahead? Disasters. I mean, I think this has been a wake up call. And I think really the resiliency side is where I think cooperative extension, marine extension really have a lot to collaborate on, because I think typically people always thought, oh, we get our hurricanes and they're coming from the Atlantic. Well, we've gotten walloped twice and they've come up right through our ag community. So, these storms don't know political boundaries, or they don't know that, oh, well, this is cooperative extension's land versus, so I think that's something that our conversations with my team are happening more, and not just the St. Simons or the Tybee Islands, the coastal, but those inner tier coastal counties that are more rural. And I think that's something I know we continue to look at as our population's changing, as the demographics, as we're switching, maybe, if we're losing some of those ag lands. I can tell you right now, a lot of the timberland that we've got lost in the
Yep.
storm, we're seeing a lot of conversion to solar panels. Okay, there's benefits to that, but there's potential impacts, and that's something I know our resiliency specialists are looking. There's always going to be pros and cons of that, but yeah, how's our land use changing, and do our local county governments have access? So I think UGA really, given that we are in all these counties and our different aspects, that's something I've been thinking a lot about, like what role not only the people that already live here, but what's our coast going to look like in the next 5 to 10 years is something I think all of us are really starting to pay a lot more attention to.
And I think that's a really cool, like y'all, for those that don't know what Marine Extension does, I think y'all have a really cool niche in a way, because you do stuff that's completely different than what I do, but also
Sure.
there is that overlap piece that connects us, that community, that that resiliency, what you were mentioning there. I think that's those are the elements that really connect us together a lot, even though that our normal necessarily day to days might be a little different. Kind of going on to that though, with Marine Extension, what are y'all's I guess your focal points? What do y'all do? What are y'all's specialty areas? I know we have so many specialists down there that y'all house.
Sure.
Can you talk a little bit about that, and
Yeah.
what does Marine Extension do?
Sure. So just stepping back for a second, the Marine Extension Sea Grant. So the Sea Grant program nationally, whether you're in Alaska, Ohio, New York, Florida, or Georgia, all Sea Grant programs, including us, have four broad areas. It's fisheries, sustainable fisheries and aquaculture, healthy coastal ecosystems, resilient communities and economies, and then finally environmental literacy and workforce development. And I tell people this, and I said it's broad enough that we could fit a battleship in,
Yeah.
but it's specific enough that I'm not going to start working on, cotton crops or pest.
Yep.
But I mean, I think where we have this overlap is that watershed health. And part of our mission really is to help support the environmental, the economic, and the social, health of our coast. And I made the point earlier about, most of our state's population lives away, but we all depend on our blue economy. So if you look at our ports, that how many goods come into that, or our tourism, the tourism and hospitality industry, second to agriculture.
Mhm.
So I mean, we have millions of visitors here. Even though our commercial fishing industry is much smaller than our ag industry, it's still a multi-million dollar industry that generates, that supports local communities, helps influence our tourism. So here in Extension, so like I said, I serve as our fisheries agent and our director, but we've got about a team of 16 faculty and staff. So I've got faculty members who have expertise in economics. So we have a coastal economist, we have a stormwater resource engineer, seafood safety, which is becoming more and more important, especially as aquaculture continues to play a role within the state and outside.
Yeah.
We have a couple different ecologists that are working on everything from reptiles and transportation ecology about, when we build roads, how does that impact wildlife, to nature-based solutions. So when we see a lot of erosion happening, traditionally we harden up the coast, but are there other elements that we can put in to really help our coast be more resilient to these changes? And water quality. And again, this is another one of those overlaps. What you guys do, 50 miles, 100 miles, 200 miles inland certainly has an impact on what we do down here. So you teaching best practices, whether it's to a planter or a homeowner, it's the same thing. So really trying to not only talk and educate people here on the coast, but even from a watershed perspective. But I think we also have our education team up on Skidaway Island. So that's another element. As people move here, we take for granted that everybody knows the value of a salt marsh or what a diamondback terrapin is, or about shrimp. So the K through grade, really, I mean, it's not just the K through 12 education, but maybe doing teacher workshops, just public programming in general. I mean, I think the interest in literacy when people move here is growing continuously. Perfect example. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, we had massive king tides. We had roads that were flooding, not with rainwater, but salt water. And, it was interesting how many people you see just driving through flooded roads. And this isn't like your traditional, hey, there's just normal, rainwater in your streets. You're literally driving in salt water. And so trying to educate people about the hazards and how to keep their families safe and protected. But we also, I mentioned seafood, but we also have our shellfish research lab that's right next to our aquarium education center. All of that seated on the campus of Skidaway Institute of Oceanography, another UG element. But oyster aquaculture really continues to be a major growth opportunity on our coast as our seafood industry diversifies. But again, going back to Atlanta, the demand from Atlanta for seafood is growing and growing and growing. And so here's an opportunity to try and improve that access, but not just on the coast, but we have a lot of land. I mean, we're a business friendly environment. We've got good networks. So that's something. I mean, Georgia is a large seafood processing state, not necessarily a large seafood harvesting state. So I think that's where, again, collaborating with Cooperative Extension, Warnell, other hospitality program at UGA. I think that's something that UGA is really looking more of how do we beef up those local food systems, whether it's a land-based or water-based system. But yeah, those are and then we even have people working with our military installations
Yep.
on the coast, and I mean, that's a huge economic driver from Kings Bay to Fort Stewart, and commonly partner with groups like Carl Vinson Institute of Government or Institute of Resilience Infrastructure. So I think that's something too, where just like you guys, we're trying to connect our researchers and our intellectual property and get it into the community best use. It's maybe sometimes a little wetter than the land-based agents.
I think it's really cool some of the stuff y'all have because not just extension's always been told as like the hidden gem, right? And I
Yep.
think our coast in Georgia is our hidden gem. And I remember a couple years ago at ANREP, we were down there and one of the folks from y'all's office did a presentation. I can't remember. It was a young lady, and she mentioned that kind of comment that the coast is such a hidden gem, but there's so much to discover there and see and its beauty and everything. And I was just so impressed. You mentioned about the education piece at some of the things that y'all are doing to try to educate people that are moving here, that are coming here, not just from how to the big things that they need to think about, but just even familiarizing themselves with birds' migratory patterns and understanding what's coming in and
Yep.
that there will be a lot of birds on the beach or that I think that was such a really cool I take for granted because I grew up in this area and the coastline and stuff, but those that are coming in, that's something that they probably won't know.
I'll give you a perfect example. Alligators. I mean,
Yes, yeah.
I've lived in an air region with alligator for 30 years, and I take it for granted. But even in my own neighborhood in Glenn County, a lot of people have moved from the Midwest, and we had a 4 foot alligator in our neighborhood's pond, but you would have thought Godzilla was attacking. And
Yep.
just learning how to interact, like to be a good steward. But we do have wildlife here, and that's something that whether it's the sea turtles or alligators, or yes, we do have some snakes and plenty of gnats and mosquitoes. But making sure people are we want them to enjoy our resources and go out. And same thing you guys do, but it's like I hate to say common sense things, but just being a better steward. The gardening stuff too. It's funny, and I mean that's why like programs like Master Gardener is awesome.
Yep.
But we complement we have rain barrel programs that we partner with like Department of Natural Resources, and just getting them to understand. There's a reason we're called the Low Country. A matter of inches determines whether you're above. You keep your ankles dry or not, and so understanding flooding issues and particularly when people first move here too. I mean, are you in a flood zone? And it's we're not in a mountainous region, so if you've come somewhere that you've never experienced that, what to expect. And I think that's something our resiliency specialists are seeing more and more people that she talked to a couple the other day. They live in Brunswick now, but they just moved from Philadelphia, and they're like, we've never been through a hurricane. We don't even know, So I think
Yep.
basic things. I think that's where programs like Extension, regardless if it's cooperative or marine, play an important role of getting that information out.
Now, I know we're getting kind of close on time here, so I
Sure.
wanna ask you something. In your experience, because you've had you've been with Extension, whether it's from UF or for us. What has been one of the coolest things Marine Extension has that or experiences that you've had through the Sea Grant work that you do, or the water quality, or now as a direct as your kind of role now? What's been one of the coolest things?
So I'm going to cheat and say two things because one of
Okay.
them is going to be passed before I get here. But I mean, I would say the legacy of this office in Brunswick was working side by side with the shrimp industry to with the importance of turtle excluder devices, which these are the devices that our shrimpers have to have in their nets to basically prevent turtles from getting in and or getting stuck in the nets. And this certainly, I mean, I'm fortunate I get to stand on the shoulders of extension specialists before me, but I think one of the things that I'm most proud of that it was UGA faculty staff on these boats with the industry, with researchers, with managers, with environmental groups sitting side by side saying, hey, how do we build a battery mouse trap that's going to protect turtles, but also help protect the industry? And I mean, this was not overnight, but I always give that example because I do look at that as a legacy program because it has built trust. And as an extension agent, trust can take years to build and seconds to destroy. But now, seeing the with aquaculture, I think it's been really cool to see our shellfishes team involvement with everybody from the Department of Natural Resources, Department of Ag, but working with our even our growers now as that industry is starting to grow. That technical assistance, both with the farmers, but also everything from the marketing, the consumer education, the safety element. And so it's interesting sometimes when on one hand it's sad that the shrimp industry, like maybe we weren't doing the same type of involvement, but showing like when there's new opportunities for us to try to respond to. And I think that, and then I think some of the other just really cool things that we've been doing with communities about how they can protect themselves from the flooding issues and stormwater and being more resilient, I think is something that just like the work you do, we don't do it in a vacuum. We do it with a lot of partners, and it's something I'm very proud of my team and the people that we work with because it's certainly, to me, is the nature of what extension should be doing is really bringing different groups together and trying to solve these issues, which are not always simple, just technical. And I was explaining to a student today who was coming in to learn a lot of times we serve as that boundary organization between a lot of different groups. And the technological issues sometimes might be the easier ones to address, but sometimes you've got people with different value systems and beliefs, and I think that's where extension plays a role too. And not that we have everyone's going to come to the same agreement, but at least trying to get everybody in the same room to have these conversations and try to improve everyone's lives. So that's something I've always been very proud of working with extension.
Well, I'll just say, speaking from my experience with you and your team, if anybody has never been to Marine Extensions or visited down there in Brunswick, that team and that office and how it's ran and everything, I just want to the teamwork and collaboration in that office is through the roof. You can really see that the passion and the different expertise coming together for a common mission. And I just want to commend that. Y'all have been. I know I didn't get to work with y'all a whole lot when I was in Liberty County before I transitioned, but I just I can't speak too highly enough of how amazing of an operation and collaborative team y'all have down there. Working with different ones of your group, it's honestly fun. Like it feels like y'all have fun.
We do, and just like any group, there's days where you want to pull your hair out, but I
That's
mean
right.
yeah, we
That's
probably all
right.
have a little grayer hairs than usual, but I think general, and it's true. Whether I mean my experience with an ag agent, 4 agent, marine extension agent, you've got people that really do care about what they're doing and really want to help, and I think that service mission is something that's central. And yeah, we certainly have our bad days, but whether it's our education team, I mean, I think it's so cool when you hear stories that someone brings their kid to summer camp that we offer, but they're like, "Oh, I came here as a kid 30 years ago," and like to see that family still engaging and or a new farmer, oyster farmer who's selling their oysters. It's just such a cool thing knowing that you're not the only one that played a role in it, but knowing that you had a key aspect. And we've been doing it for over 50 years, and I'm hoping we have another 50 years. So, I mean, like I said, we certainly have no shortage of issues that we're facing, but I that's one of the things it's overwhelming. But again, I mean, our whole networks, and that's something else I tell people. I mean, we are are very lucky to have a statewide network, and it's helpful. Even though, yes, I don't work on cotton, but maybe learning about the process you use to work with a cotton farmer can benefit me working with a shrimper and vice versa. So I think for whether you're an extension or whether you're a community member, whether you've lived here your whole life or not, I do tell people, take advantage of these resources. I think that's something UGA we have resources in every county. And I think that's where I always tell people I hate telling people I'm a specialist. I feel like I specialize at being a generalist, and part of my job, if I don't know that answer, is I got to call the people who do, and I think that's something we're damn good at, quite frankly.
I love that no matter what part of extension, if you're Marine in Georgia or cooperative here, across the United States, I think we all share that same blood and that same mission, and that teamwork and utilizing the resource that we have, leaning on each other, the collaborative piece, and working together to our common goal. And
Yeah.
I think that's commendable for all of us from extension side, but. Well, I know due to time, I want to wrap up. I just want to say thank you so much for being here and joining in on the podcast today. Any final thoughts or anything before we sign off?
No, please come see us on the coast. If anybody's interested, if you Google Marine Extension Georgia Sea Grant, gacoast.uga.edu, and whether it's our extension faculty here in Brunswick or our shellfish team or our education staff faculty up on Skidaway. But yeah, just like I hope you guys are reaching out to your cooperative extension agents wherever you live. Please utilize the resources that we can provide too, and that's what we're here for.
I'll make sure to link the link to the Marine Extensions website in our post on Facebook. And if anybody else wants any more information, they can go to our blog. We will make sure to also have that link on there as well. Thank you so much, Bryan. And now we're going to transition and switch it over to Savannah and Wade.
Hey guys, it's Savannah. Today we are going to be talking with Wade Parker. He's no stranger to the show about the general crop update in row crops. I'll tell you, it seems like it has been the longest year, certainly of my career. We've been faced with a lot, but Wade, if you would just give us a general update of what we're hearing. As far as peanut harvest goes and cotton harvest goes.
Well, Savannah, I hope you and your viewers are doing well today. We go outside as we speak. I'm in Statesboro, and we got fairly light rain taking place right now. And last night at my house, we got 2 tenths, and that was probably the first rain we've had in about 10 days. So it's going to stall harvesting a little bit. But at the same time, it will settle to dust as long as we don't get too much and it moves on out of here and we get some sunny days. You mentioned crop update, and majority of our acreage is peanuts and cotton. So I'll start off with the best first. I know a lot of people usually do it in reverse, but I'll start off with the best, what I think is the best or the best news. me and you, we talk very regular during the growing season, and just like you alluded to, we've been through a lot of challenges. Um, the cotton jassid, the severe flash drought that we had at the end of the year. Those are the first two things that come to mind. But it seems like to me our dryland peanut crop may be a little bit better than what we anticipated. Now I know there's some people may disagree with me when I say that, but me and you, we had a lot of conversations about our crops, and especially the dryland peanuts and the cotton. But the peanuts really struggled throughout the last part of the growing season. And as I talk to farmers and talk to agents pretty regular, even some of the hardest hit areas, it seems like the yields are down definitely. And I mean, I will be the first to say that our dryland peanut crop did take a hit, but hopefully it may not be quite as bad as what we had anticipated, 3 weeks ago or maybe even a month ago. The grades started off low when harvest first started, and they seem to have gradually improved. I'm a little concerned about some of the aflatoxin loads that I've been hearing the last couple of weeks. Hopefully that has leveled off, but I'm sure that's coming out of those dryland pockets that were really hard hit by the drought. As far as cotton, our irrigated cotton and our irrigated peanuts, I didn't mention irrigated peanuts, but those yields seem to be very good. Our dryland cotton, again, the later the cotton was planted, the more damage that it did sustain from, I call it the flash drought because that's what Pam Knox refers to it to. Our late planted cotton was hit with it. The earlier planted cotton, anything planted before May 15th, dryland wise, those yields look really good. And of course, it depends on where you are, but I'm just kind of speaking as a generic universal terms. But I think as time will tell, we'll have a better idea of how these yields are going to shape out. But hopefully it won't be quite as bad as what we had earlier anticipated.
Maybe so. I kind of am on the same side. Things have I was kind of gloomy, down and out a little bit, and then things seem to have been a pleasant surprise and in regard to some of the yields and things that we're seeing. So that's always a good thing to hear.
It is.
One of the things, Wade, that you hear like with peanuts, you'll hear grades as far as like uh, a 70 with a 4, or I think the worst one I've heard this year is like a 57 with a 12, or something
Right.
crazy like that. Can you explain some of those key components of a grade sheet and what those mean in regard
Yes.
to peanuts?
Okay, we're talking about grades. You hear the term 73 with a 3, 73 with a 4. The 73 is the total sound mature kernels. When you're going through the grading process, they have different stages that these peanuts go through, and they shell the peanuts, and they at the end of the day, they want the peanut grading process needs to be fair for the entity that's buying the peanuts, and it needs to be fair for the grower. And that's one thing I do like about our federal state inspection service is it's non-biased, and it does project a fair playing field for both sides. Now, having said that, the total sound mature kernels is the total mature kernels that ride a screen. And Savannah, don't quote me on the number, but I think it's something like a 1564 an inch by 3/4 of an inch. Again, don't quote me on the numbers, but just focus on the concept. And that 73%, that means 73% of those peanuts are the total sound, or the mature kernels plus the sound splits. Those two numbers combined. And when you hear the term sound splits, those are good peanuts that have split inside the hull for whatever reason, whether it's through mechanical damage, drying too fast. But anyway, those are still good peanuts. Now, once they reach a certain percentage of sound splits, then you start getting a discount. But at the end of the day, we'll just say 73 is mature plus the sound splits. Now, the other number is a little bit more complicated. There's a grading system that has like a 1, 2, 3, and a 4, and and the lower the number, the better the grade. So if you say 73 and a 3, you'd have to look up each individual number on the 1, 2, 3, and it tells you how many mature, how many splits, the percent damage. But just as a general rule for purposes of today, the lower the number, the better the grade.
So how does, I guess, the weather conditions, we've up until today, it's been a while since we've had rain, August on our farm, or any measurable amount of rain. How does digging conditions and picking and harvesting those affect those grades, and how do we alter and try to get the best grades that we can?
Okay. A lot of times we concentrate on yield, yield, yield. If you don't have the yield, you grades don't matter. So a lot of times during the growing season, we just really concentrate on yield. But as the season gets mature and we progress to the end, it's like, oh no, the henny penny, the sky's falling. Now we got to worry about grade. And one of the most valuable tools that we offer to growers is the pod blasting clinics. And that is so important. And it seems like as time has went on, growers have really learned the value. But to me, the top thing we can do is check those peanuts for maturity. Because if you can time it out to where that peanut is not under mature, but it's not over mature, and you're trying to get it in the middle, you have got 50% of the battle won as far as getting a good grade. Now, to me, the other 50% is stuff like digging on time, which is the maturity board. But also, if that field is too wet and you go out there after a rain, you say, I got to dig these peanuts, I got to dig these peanuts, and you dig them with a lot of soil moisture, and then the peanuts come up wet, and then you have 10 days of dry weather, that rapid drying with dirt around them, that can cause a lot of those sound splits. So making sure that the soil moisture is conducive for digging is very important. Also, even if you dig them under good soil moisture or the optimal soil moisture, don't let them sit out there for 2 weeks, because the longer they sit out there and they get below that 10% moisture level, then you're actually losing weight, because the state's going to give you 10 or 10.5. So if you turn in your peanuts at 7%, you have just given 3% of your weight away. And the longer they sit out there, the longer they'll start losing moisture. Then they start shriveling up, and they refer to as raisins sometimes when they get too dry. Also, one thing that's really important too, Savannah, is making sure that equipment is adjusted. If your fingers are set too aggressive, and your air flow going through the combine is too harsh and too fierce, then it throws that peanut against the basket, and you get a lot of LSKs, which is loose shell kernels, and that's not good.
Right. Well, kind of switching gears from cotton to peanuts, you hear a lot more about peanut grades than you hear usually about cotton grades, and certainly nobody wants to talk about reducing the price of cotton any more than it's already been reduced. But let's switch gears and talk about a little bit about those cotton grade sheets and what our farmers have to kind of pay attention to in regard to those.
Well, before you ever plant your cotton and you're looking through all these data, whether it's our data or industry data, on trying to pick a variety, if grade is your priority, some people are just really, really prioritize a cotton grade, and they may not look at yield so much. So look at the genetics of the variety, because these varieties are not standardized. Certain varieties have different grades. Some are better, some are not as good. Usually, as a rule of thumb, and I stress as a rule of thumb, some of the varieties that don't grade as good, they are very top yielders. And some of the varieties that don't yield as good come in with very strong grades. So you have to kind of pay attention to all that, because you don't want to give up on yield and you don't want to give up on grades. There's a fine line with that. But as far as what we can do as growers to try to get a good grade, If it's irrigated cotton, timely watering, watering at the right stages of growth, putting the right amount of water out, because once cotton goes into a stress, your micronair starts dropping, your staple could drop. So once those variables start dropping, those are out of our control. But again, if we can irrigate, making sure that you do a good job with irrigation. Also, defoliation is extremely important because your leaf grade is one of the components that buyers really look at. And if you have a lot of trash in your cotton, from improper defoliation or untimely defoliation, that's going to hurt. Also, waiting patiently for your cotton after a major rain. Because if you get an inch of rain, for example, wait. It depends on what the temperature is and how much sunshine. I'd say at least 2 or 3 days, probably 3 days before you start picking again. The longer you can wait, the better your color grade is going to be. And again, there's 3 things on a grade that these buyers really look at is the color, leaf, and the staple. So having that color is very important.
So with peanuts or soybeans or even corn, moisture at harvest is the most critical in regard to grades and how we progress throughout the buying process and the selling process. How does moisture with cotton impact the lint quality or grade?
Okay. Every time, once you get a rain on a cotton that's been defoliated, for example, every time that raindrop hits that cotton fiber, it actually weakens it. So you got your color problem from lack of sunshine, but the impact of water on that lint actually weakens the strength of the fiber. So when it's graded and that fiber strength is tested and it comes up low, then that's going to hurt your grade, which in turn, if it's low enough, it could hurt your overall price that you're getting. And you kind of made a reference, cotton's already trading at 63, 64 cents. So just really take some of these things into consideration that I'm talking about that we can control. All right, as far as moisture on peanuts, okay, like today, it's overcast, light rain, forecasted to be more rain tonight. Hopefully, according to the forecast, it's going to move out of here by Wednesday. Then we have several days of dry weather. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I think we'll survive this little wet episode. Now, if this rain were to set in, then eventually the hull of the peanut will deteriorate. Once it starts deteriorating, it's going to spread to your actual kernel, and eventually that kernel is going to start getting some type of moldy growth. It's going to deteriorate, and again, every time it gets wet, then it dries. Eventually, you're going to get what I refer to as a raisin, but it's got to get pretty severe for that to happen. And those peanuts that I'm describing like this will eventually go Seg 1 peanuts, which is 35% of the loan price. And we definitely don't want that.
When you're talking about some of that harvesting components, we are expecting some cooler weather. So obviously, I don't think it's necessarily frost worthy based on what I'm seeing. Now, I don't know that the weatherman is too accurate these days, but I guess let's talk a little bit about how the cooler weather can impact both the digging time frames with peanuts, but then also how that same cooler temperatures, things like that, would impact cotton defoliation.
Okay. All right. Cotton defoliation, as the temperatures decrease, you need to raise the rates of your defoliant products because it takes more to get the job done. Also, it's going to take longer for the stuff to work. That's why we raise the rates. So if it's the middle of September and we make a recommendation with cotton defoliation, getting good sunshine and heat, it won't take long and you'll have a picker in that field because everything works faster. But as it cools down, which it really going to cool down Friday and Saturday, then the diazuron, or as we commonly call drop, you can either really lower the rate of drop, and because the cooler it gets, the less likely you're going to have regrowth. So that's a real important thing to consider. Now your Folex and your Ethafon, those two products, if you're using those, would need to be raised. As far as peanuts, if we're still blasting some samples and we got some late planted peanuts, just keep in mind where you have been saying a week for this sample to mature. As we go forward from here on out, you're looking at maybe 10 to 14 days as far as getting what you need out of that sample. So everything is really rapidly changing now.
Well, thank you, Wade. We're hopefully quickly closing this very long year, it seems like to me, out. And honestly, I think I'm kind of excited to move it on through and see where we go from next year. But again, we want to thank you for coming. A couple of upcoming events that we have ending on November the 7th. So there is a statewide 4-H fundraiser for most counties. Counties can opt in whether or not to do it. And that's the front door produce samples. I know we're selling here at Emmanuel County really good mixed vegetable box. They're coming in the week before Thanksgiving. They've got squash, cucumbers, jalapenos. It really depends on the year, but really high quality vegetable box. So you can support your local 4-H offices by purchasing those online. More information can be found contacting your local office. But there's also a 5-module series on succession planning. November the 10th through the 19th. So if you want more information about that, it'll be posted to both our website and our Facebook page. And then also here in Emmanuel County, we're going to be posting or having an Agri Manager short course on December the 2nd. So we'd love to see y'all. That registration is mandatory for that. So please don't forget to call the Emmanuel County office and get registered. But thank you guys for being here and listening. And just remember to keep telling it like it is.
Getting gas and tipping cash changed the way I see the world. There's still some good in it, and that good is you, girl.